This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
What is Brazil most known for? It's gained a reputation for its rich and varied wildlife among its lush rainforests. It's known for its contributions to music and culture. And of course, it's hard to deny that it's been a soccer powerhouse for many years. But in the past couple decades, another sport has become its favorite pastime, racing. Names like Fittipaldi, Senna, Barrichello, Massa, and Castroneves have become world-renowned. At the center of this fervor for motorsports is Interlagos. Today, with two classes tackling this small track at once, it might just be more frantic action than the fans can handle. We'll see what sort of frenzy gets whipped up as we get ready to watch round 4 of the iRacing Kamel GT series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Adam Lindgren. Behind the scenes is our director Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Adam, Interlagos is probably more closely associated with Formula One, but it's seen its fair share of sports car racings over the years too.
Definitely, Joe, and with Formula One considering removing Interlagos from the calendar, sports car racing will likely be its mainstay for years to come. Located on the side of a hill between two estuaries, the Autódromo José Carlos Pace is a wild 2.7 mile or 4.3 kilometer circuit, complete with 15 turns and a whopping 141 feet or 43 meters of elevation change. Known for its long, snaking, multi-apex turns that bleed into braking zones, this track will test the mettle of even the most experienced drivers. And while the first and third sectors are high speed, the middle sector of this track is slow and winding, leading to lots of understeer into the corners and wicked oversteer out of the corners, especially for the Nissans. Speaking of the Nissans, they will have to be patient as they wait for the longer turns such as Ferradura and Margello to pass, while the Audis will have to be patient as they wait for the Nissans to spool up out of the slower corners such as Pinarino and Pico de Pato. Add to that wild temperature changes from one end of the circuit to the other and frequent shifts in the weather at Interlagos, and you have a recipe for a wild race today. But why not add a cherry on top, eh? Let's make this thing 60 minutes, requiring a pit stop and some strategy play, and now you're talking. Let's kick this off with a lap around Interlagos in our GSRC lap guide.
All right, we're in the GSRC Audi, so let's do a lap around Interlagos. Coming up to the Senna S, you've got some incredibly difficult braking. The track curves and drops away, and in the Audi, it's tough to find that sweet spot of balance. Keep tucked into both apexes, and then, when you come onto the Curva de Sol, you'll find yourself feathering the throttle. The car will want to understeer if you stay in it flat out, so it's all about judging it right and mashing that right pedal as early as it'll stick. That's because you're now flying down the Reta Oposta, which gives a prime passing opportunity into the Descida del Lago. Once again, you've got another corner where the elevation drop is going to make that apex frustratingly hard to hit. From there, turn 5 can be flat out if you hit it just perfect, but I found I often needed a small lift. And then you've got to switch sides quickly to line up for Ferradura. This double apex sweeper will test your patience because you'll be itching to get back on the gas. And even though you've got lots of paved runoff to the outside, you don't want to swing it too wide or you'll get an off track. Now you'll slam the brakes for 8, which kicks off the more technical second half of the course. Always keep in mind that these curves to the inside are fair game and give a decent amount of grip, so go ahead and get greedy by climbing all over them. The hard part is just the constant waiting to apply the throttle through these weaving hairpins. Eventually, once you've coasted through Mugello, you'll let it swing out to the right and slam the brakes for Juchao. This is easily the most important corner of the track because your exit will have a lot to say about your lap time. Not only is the climb to the start-finish line the longest flat-out section of the track, but it's pretty steeply uphill. Momentum and top end make a big difference here. Expect a bit of drafting to help kick off some battles down into the first corner, but hopefully you've now finished a lap around Interlagos.
See a lap around Interlagos, and the Audi, it'll be a little bit different in these Nissans with them driving it so differently. But before we get to that, let's talk about the championship, starting off with the prototypes. Now, a little bit of a surprise up at the top. Fabian Jungbluth is leading the points, but this is before they've added the drop weeks in, and it's been a little bit topsy-turvy in the points in both classes so far, hence why we've got Fabian jumping up there, but he will not be leading after today because he hasn't shown up, unfortunately. So we will see who takes the top spot after this race. Meanwhile, let's look at the Audis. Adam, what's the GTO championship like?
Definitely. GTO championship is also an interesting situation. We have Nicholas Makanos tied for the lead with Rob Olenek, an interesting development after last week's race, which is amazing. We have Ove Trangerade only 7 points behind, so those three are really duking it out for the championship this year, followed by Reed Miller and Sergey Serbin in the back. They've missed a couple of races themselves, but that top three battle, that is going to be one to watch this season.
And of course, if you haven't watched the Kamel GT series before, here's the race details for what we've got in store. As Adam mentioned, this is their endurance format, 60 minutes, and that graphic is unfortunately wrong. They will have one stop for fuel. Both classes will have to come in to top up and make it to the end. Tires will be a talking point we'll go over in a little bit, though, and you can see 25 points goes to the winner in each class. They do get 2 drop rounds that I mentioned a little bit earlier in the program, and that will affect the championship soon as we start to calculate those into the points fight. Once again, you're watching this on the iRacing Esports Network, and, well, if you aren't subscribed yet, it's easy to get subscribed. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page. If you see a big red button that says subscribe, that means you haven't signed up yet. Make sure and do that. You'll get all of the Kamel GT series in your YouTube feed. So we watch qualifying work its way through. Provisionally, Gerber is on the pole, at least in the prototypes, and Rolla is on the pole in the Audis. But we'll go over how that is shaping up in a moment. Let's head down to our pit reporter today, since we do have pit stops. Don Peak, the man who has joined me for many races in real life, has joined us today. Don, what are you expecting out of the Nissans? Because I know you spent a fair bit of time in that car in this series.
I have, Joe, and I even ran a few laps on this track pre-race. And the Nissan is famous for not liking slow corners, and I think there's several of those on this track, and I think we're going to see a lot of wheel spin coming out of the slow corners.
Yeah, those hairpins through the middle part of the track could be tricky, not just with traffic, but hopefully they've got their wits about them. Adam, you were telling me a little bit about the pit strategy itself as well with the tires. I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out because it seems like it's relatively cool conditions out there. Is anybody actually going to elect to take them, you think?
It really depends on how the weather shapes out. At the beginning of this qualifying session, it was actually sunny, so these folks who have been running later in the qualifying session actually have gotten a better qualifying time, and that means with the track cooling down, with it being cloudy like this, that could mean that they don't have to take tires. But it's all going to depend on how the weather shapes up for the race and how hot the track is if we have any sun on it.
Right now, we ride on board with John Keefe, who his current qualifying time of a 1:25 puts him at the back of the GTP fields, but he's coming around for his second one as he comes out of Rigurlo up to the junction. Let's see what he's got underneath him. From here, it is flat out all the way to the line as you climb long ways uphill, past Water Tower, past Subidos dos boxes, and across the line. Can he manage to get past a few of these drivers on the timing sheets? He's quicker, a 1:24.8, and that unfortunately does not put him any higher. So John Keefe is going to be at the tail end, Charlie, of the field. And he is the last of our drivers to get a time in. So our grid is set. Let's go through your starting order for the day. Fabian Gerber returns once again to try to snag a win. He'll be starting on the pole. Justin Albrecht, our winner at Snetterton, comes in and starts next to him in second place. Tobias Gerber, the other Gerber, starts in third, and he'll be flanked by Steve Bycroft in P4. Phil Lake hops over out of the Lotus 49 just a couple hours ago into the Nissan to start fifth. Martin Krajcik will be P6. Johnny Bell as well was just racing over in Japan. Now he's in Brazil, starting from 7th, and we follow John Keefe's progress to be last on the field in the Camels from 8th. Adam?
And we have Billy Rolla actually taking a surprise pole from Ove Trangerade in the Audis on that first row. Then we have Rob Olenek starting in the second row there, followed by Nick McConos. We have Riley Thompson starting off in the third row. Not a great qualifying for him. He's going to be next to Riley Downey. Then we have Ralphie Levy and Henry Pitkanen taking up the last two spots for the Audis. And then we have Simone Pancri, who did not take a qualifying time.
All the drivers lining up on the grid as they're going to be led on a rolling start behind the Porsche pace car. Thankfully, don't have to go for a full lap. They just start just before the infield section here. You can see they're waiting to get underway. Don, the other thing that I've been kind of wondering about as well, even though it's a pretty simple pit entry, this pit exit is kind of narrow. Does that provide any sort of issue, at least for the Nissan trying to get out of there, or is it just foot to the floor? Nope. Looks like Don's gone to check out something a little bit down through the pit lane, so we'll get back to him in a little bit. But we've already taken off now, coming up to the Ducksbill, and we'll get going racing for 60 minutes here today at Interlagos. We watch Mucanos, our current points leader, tied points leader, we should say. I'm guessing they have some sort of tiebreaker, but we'll have to check the rule book to see how they've determined that he is currently up on top, but he'll have to start with a few cars in front of him if he wants to get himself to continue to lead the way in the points.
Yeah, Joe, the Audis are actually leaving quite a significant gap to the GTPs, the Nissan GTPs here, so it's going to be interesting to see where they are required to start once the GTPs get the green.
We've seen about a 7-second gap between them in qualifying, the slowest Nissan to the fastest Audi, so wonder how quickly we're going to see them get lapped. We'll find out soon enough because that pace car is just getting ready to peel into the pit lane, and that is not very long at all before they get to the start-finish line. So I expect these Nissans to accelerate very quickly. They've given control to Gerber, and green flag is out here for round 4 as Fabian Gerber accelerates away and heads off into the distance, coming down into the Senna S. Already the top 3 single file. A little bit of a battle for 4th behind them. Still too wide. Oh, and already we've got an accident as Martin Krejcik gets turned around. But in the meantime, we've got to go to the Audis.
We also had an accident in the Audis. Riley Downey got into Rob Olnick, and Nicholas Makanos are both out right now. Billy Rolle and Riley Thompson take off as the front two. It's been a crazy restart. It was 5 wide on the start there, so the Audi's already strung out, but the battle between Billy and Riley is going to be one to watch for sure.
Oof. Well, that makes the championship fight a little bit interesting, as both of our classes already have managed to work their way through the Descida del Lago. And I do see a change for position in 3rd. Henry Pitkinen just overtook Ralphie Levy. In fact,
Ralphie's having trouble getting that car in gear. He can't get the Audi into gear, so he's struggling with that.
Now he's going once again. That cost him a lot of positions, unfortunately, as he falls all the way to 7th place in class. Only car behind him is Rob Olenek, who does get his Audi going once again, but has a lot of ground to make up.
Ove Trangarade, Rob Olnick, and Nicholas Makanos all had trouble on that start. Rob Olnick way off pace, but Ove Trangarade and Nicholas Makanos, they're battling for those championship positions, and those two guys are going to have to fight their way back to the field and try and catch Billy Rolle and Riley Thompson at the front.
Let's check back in on the Nissans before we go to our replay, because Justin Albrecht is only 2/10 behind Gerber, closing before the Descida del Lago, but does not manage to get close enough for an overtake. They do have the trailing Tobias Gerber not too far back, about 7/10 behind. So if they start fighting, this could become a 3-way fight for the lead.
As we're taking a look at the 007 cam on the back of Fabian Gerber, Fabian Gerber had about 5/10 to Justin Albrecht for the qualifying times. So Justin really able to hang with Fabian right now in race pace, so that's a really good sign for him. And just as I said, Joe, the sun's come out now, so that's going to affect tire strategy. If the sun stays out like this, they're definitely going to have to take tires when they pit.
It's up to 87 degrees on the track, so it hasn't risen significantly quite yet. I think we've got a replay on the start, though, for the Audi, since we jumped to them a little bit late and only caught the tail end of that incident. Let's see if we could pull that up and take a glance at what went down. Here we go. I only jumped
the
back
Audi field. Take a look at this. Almost 5 wide as they went across the line there, and that's because it looked like Nicholas Makanos and Ove Trangarade had serious trouble getting off the line. They didn't get good speed. And then we had Riley Downey, who went and hit the inside wall, clipping, I think that was Ove Trangarade. And then the 2 cars in front of them just spun as well. So a lot of action when they went into turn 1.
We come back live, looking at our top 2 and this is Trangarade fighting with Henry Pitkinen. Pitkinen gets overtaken, and Ove finds himself on the podium.
Ove Trangarade making quick work of those backmarker Audis, I should say. This is the top 5 we're talking about. Ove Trangarade's pace is just so much more than some of these less experienced drivers that he's just plowing forward, and now he's got to catch Riley Thompson, who's almost 8 seconds ahead.
While we've been watching all this, Don's been keeping his eye on the back of the Nissan field. It looks like causing a little bit of headache for the Audis, Don.
Yeah, it looks like Simon just got passed.
Simone Pancre there just got passed by Riley Thompson. We know that the Nissans are faster in a straight line, but he can't get the speed out of the corners, so he's really struggling there.
Been overtaken for overall position by Thompson and Andrew Ola, who are fighting for the lead in the GTOs. As it gets awful dark here now, the clouds have come right back. Pretty typical changeable weather here for Interlagos. You can see the yellow and blue machine of Vili Ruola stretches a little bit out. Riley Thompson doesn't quite get on the power as well down the front stretch.
I'd like to remind you guys that Riley Thompson started in the 6th position for the Audis. So with that start, he got a better start than the rest of the field and went up all the way around the outside and was able to get into second position before turn 1. So that's why he's in such a good position right now fighting with Billy Rolla.
As we watch on board Riley Thompson, we can't see in his mirror, but poor Simone has been faster on the straights naturally in the prototype, but doesn't seem to be quite fast enough or doesn't want to try and overtake Riley and has since been hovering behind. Meanwhile, down the outies, we got some action, Adam.
Yeah, we've got Nicholas Bacanos closing in now with Henry Pikkinen, so he's definitely going to be trying to make that pass, same as Obe Trengrade, and get next to him. And yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not Nicholas can get this done. He's trying to get it done in this middle sector, and that's really difficult. Looks like Henry Pikkinen's trying to let him by. That's not going to work great.
As he almost comes across the track and chops off the nose of Mucanos, but Mucanos swings back under. Can't get the over-under coming out of Magurlo. Now they hit the junction. Try to get on the power to climb up the hill. It looks like a very good run from Mucanos. Is the draft going to be powerful enough? You think he could slingshot by, Adam?
Should be. See whether Nicholas Mucanos can make this work.
He's got the inside. And I think he's going to be fully passed by the time they hit the braking. Indeed, Mucanos, our points leader, now moves himself up into P4.
Yeah, but Obe Trengrade, one of his points competitors, I believe Obe was in third, is right ahead of him, about 4 seconds ahead, so he's going to have work to do to get up there and pass Obe Trengrade to try and retain his points lead.
Going to the battle for the lead in the Nissans. Fabian Gerber still ahead of Albrecht. They're starting to drop Tobias Gerber slightly. It is now up to 1.5 seconds between second and third place. And they've dropped fourth place Steve Bycroft himself by 3.5 seconds. So the battle for the top spot dwindles down to fewer and fewer cars. But you have to admit that Justin Albrecht is continuing to apply pressure.
Yeah, Justin's been closing in well. He's way better on the brakes than Fabian, but Fabian's got a better exit. And as we saw in the first round of this season, that doesn't really work well for trying to pass somebody. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think Justin Albrecht's going to be able to get by if Fabian keeps nailing his exits like this.
Ooh, and I wondered if this would happen. It looks like Simone Pancree actually had contact with Riley Thompson. Thompson was able to power out of it, but Simone had to take a toe in, and I think he has left the race. Let's take a look at the replay.
Yeah, right here, they're coming out of, going into Jinkao, and Simone just sticks it right up the inside, and Riley just has to hammer that throttle and use that four-wheel slide to get out of it, but Simone really putting it in deep there on Riley, and Riley already having turned in. He didn't know he was coming.
That looked awful late. Unfortunate to see Simone have to exit the race so early, but I have a feeling Riley Thompson does not share that sympathy as he continues to run in second place. But that cost him time. It is now 4.5 seconds between himself and the leader in the GTO. And we had a pass down at the bottom of the Nissans. Johnny Bell and Martin Krejcik in a little bit of a fight. Martin's going to come out on top between those two as they lap Ralphie Levy. Let's take a look at the replay on that.
And Johnny Bell doing, oh wow. And yeah, while we're watching this, that was a pass through turn one, and I believe Martin Krejcik is about to try and take Johnny Bell back to that same position here. We're going to go live, and they are side by side as they go into one here.
Well, that was the replay that we actually just watched. It was Johnny Bell now into the infield section behind Martin Krejcik.
Sorry, I was so engrossed in the replay, I thought it was live.
Yeah, and these guys like to fight for these positions, even if it's at the back of the field. They want to get as many points as they can. especially with so few drivers showing up today. It does look like the number 12 has the legs on Johnny Bell for the moment, because he's pulling away to over a second now.
And the lead of the Nissans just overtook Rob Olenek. Rob Olenek has been struggling significantly lately. He had that spin at the beginning of the race, and he just has not recovered in the same way that the other Audi top front runners in the championship have. He's still stuck in 6th position, while Ove and Nicholas, who were involved in that opening wreck, are up to 3rd and 4th. So this lead for the GTP, since they passed Rob, Rob's really not having a great race today.
I wonder if we could pull up a lap comparison between Rob and Mukanos, since those two are the ones fighting for the championship and also had similar problems at the start. Maybe you give us an idea of just how they compare out there on track, since, like you said, it's shocking to see Rob so far down. Here we go. We've got the comparison. And actually, Mukanos is a bit slower in a couple laps there.
Yeah, I think he just ran into some traffic there on lap 4, but you know, it's really interesting to see that even with Rob's relative pace being decent, he's not been able to climb up the field the same way that Nicholas has.
We'll check on in that a little bit later. That was Albrecht and Gerber just lapping Mukanos. Now Tobias sneaking around the outside. Tobias actually hasn't lost that much more time since we last looked in his continued efforts to chase down Albrecht. In fact, it's actually Albrecht who's losing Gerber now.
Yeah, and Albrecht is losing Gerber, I think, because of the traffic. He had trouble getting past Nicholas Mukanos there through the exit of the Senna S. So this is going to be interesting to see as they continue going forward.
Let's watch from Albrecht's perspective. See if we can deduce anything just from watching how the hands are moving inside the car. He chases down the leader Fabian Gerber, yet more traffic in front of him. That's Ove Trangrade, who sits in 3rd in the GTOs. He's going to catch him at a great place as he just pulls off to the side.
Great place for him, but not a great place for the Audi. That's a really difficult turn for the Audis as they push wide there. So that probably lost Ove Trangrade significant time.
Bill, he decided better to let them have plenty of the inside, stayed out of the way, and let both Tobias and Albrecht through. We're now 13 minutes into this race, and from what we understand, Don, it seems like the pit window is relatively wide for this series. Do you believe we could see some early pitters?
I think that's at least a possibility. You're right. It's a pretty wide pit window for only a 60-minute race, and these cars can go 45 or 50 on a tank generally.
So we'll keep an eye out, see if anybody joined Don down on the pit lane. In the meantime, the number 7 on screen of Riley Thompson. Ever since that contact, I wonder if he got a little bit of damage himself. It's now almost 8 seconds between himself and Rula. Adam, is this him losing the draft? Is this damage? I mean, what are your thoughts?
It could be losing the draft. It's most likely damage. It's possible that it was left rear contact, so it's possible the differential is a little bit damaged on that car, not giving him the drive off that he's used to. But it's also possible that he might be deciding to save some fuel here. If he's going to try and do no tires, considering the track has been covered with clouds for most of this race, it's possible that he could take a different pit strategy and try and do this race on no tires. And if he uses less fuel, it's possible that he could overtake with an undercut here.
We saw Riley using all the track and then some, going off into the grass slightly through the Subidos Dos boxes. I think we're going to have an overtake for 5th in the Audis because Rob Olenek has got a run and is now fully past Henry Pitkinen, making it look easy. It may have been a little bit of a slower climb, but Rob is making progress. He is our current champion from last season, we should mention.
It looks like Rob is struggling with the front end on this Audi. I have to remind you guys, this is an open setup series, so these guys really get to make the decision on what kind of setup they're driving and whether that works with their driving style. And Rob's having a hard time getting his nose into the corners. I mean, he's having to use a lot of brake to do that and is pushing significantly wide on exits, so that's going to be very difficult for him to continue going forward.
And as this has been going on, we've had at least one taker for an alternate strategy. Don, what's the story?
It looks like Martin Kraytrick is in the pits right now. He's running a little bit long. Oh, there he goes. So 40 minutes in the lane. 40 seconds, sorry.
Yeah, I hope it's not a 40-minute pit stop, but he's managed to make his way back out. Did you see whether or not he took tires, or did he just splash and dash this one?
I did not notice, but 23-second stop tells me he probably just took fuel.
All right, so Kraytrick is done and gone and out on track running. Looking at the rest of our field, everybody's starting to spread out a little bit as we've completed the first quarter of this race. Still being led by Fabian Gerber, who doesn't have the largest of gaps currently, so some traffic could switch that around quickly. On the other hand, the GTOs have found themselves spread wide apart between P1 and P2. Villirola really taking advantage of the fact that a lot of the big hitters have not shown up today.
You say that, but Riley Thompson was our winner pretty handily last week, and he's really struggling on his pace, only about 8.5 seconds behind in second place. But Villirola really holding up Steve Bycroft here in the fourth position in the GTP. Steve not being able to find a place by through that second sector.
Now he's going to be able to slip through. Yeah, it's fascinating to see the difference between last week and this week, because Thompson just basically, as you said, had a stranglehold, whereas today it looks like he's struggling. I know you're one of his teammates. Has he mentioned this being sort of a bogey track for him?
Well, it's not one of his favorites for sure. He was debating whether or not to race this week, but I don't think that's what keeps him from being fast. I think it's just, it may not be a track that suits his driving style particularly, so.
Maybe his driving style is a little bit more rallycross, as we've seen him catch a number of slides over the years of coverage. Oh, and we got another taker in pit lane, but Ralphie's car does not look healthy here. Ooh, here we've got a replay of it.
Oh my goodness, it looks like he pushed wide going through the straight there. That kink in the straight is very difficult to take in the Audis. You have to lift in a place where you really wouldn't expect to, and he just pushes wide and clobbers that wall. So that's going to be significant damage for him.
You got to be careful in the high-speed sections, Ralphie. You'll put your eye out. He's still in pit lane, taking care of quite a bit of damage. So he's fallen to last on the field. The French driver, unfortunately, having a bit of a bad day.
And Fabian Gerber's actually caught up to the back of Martin Kraytrick, actually. So this is interesting because Martin has recently pitted. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not Fabian can get by and maybe hold up Martin a bit, because that's going to be pretty important for his own pit strategy later.
Absolutely. But at the same time, he also doesn't want to be held up by Martin. And though Martin is getting the blue flags, he's on an alternate strategy, so he doesn't want to give up time. So could this be Justin's opportunity to maybe start to reel him back in, see if he could take 2 for 2 on wins on board with Fabian Gerber through the ducks, Bill?
We're going to need to watch this gap to see whether or not, the gap between Fabian and Justin, to see whether or not it closes with Fabian being behind Martin. But it's possible that Martin might just let Fabian go to try and not hold up Fabian or cause an accident in one. We'll see what happens here.
He's gaining a little bit up the front stretch, but this does not look like he's got enough momentum to try and overtake down into the Senna S. Kraytrick not exactly pulling over to let him through, so he's going to stay ahead. And Justin Albrecht trying to regain that ground, as you see flashes of him on the screen. This time, down the Retta Aposta, I think Gerber's got it. He's to the inside. He's going to slip through as one of our Audis. That's Riley Downey just pulling off the track to let everybody by.
And now Justin Albrecht is stuck behind Martin Krejcik going into the technical section. So this is going to be very, very unfortunate for him. If Martin Krejcik is slow through here, Justin's going to be in trouble trying to close up on Fabian. So he's going to have to work really hard to pass it here.
Yeah, and he did gain some ground. He chopped off about 0.6 on the first half of this lap. But once again, I think it's going to be handed back by the traffic here. Because he's struggling behind Martin Krejcik. Maybe he'll be able to get through coming off the corner. He's a little bit closer than what we saw Gerber was when he came off last lap. He could manage to get by him before the Senna S.
Yeah, it looks like Martin has some rear end damage, which might be affecting his aerodynamics at high speed, and so that's going to allow Justin to go straight by on that straight, and I think he'll outbrake him into one.
In fact, that draft may have helped Justin because he's now down to 0.9 behind Fabian Gerber. And he jumps back up to 1.1. Number 6 is trying his hardest. He's using every trick in the book, but I'm not sure that he's got the legs for Fabian today.
I'm noticing a significant disparity between Ville Rolla and Riley Thompson's lap times. Rolla is consistently doing mid-31s, whereas Riley Thompson's fastest lap is a mid-32, so that might be what's giving Ville Rolla the pace. As we take a look at this lap comparison, just look at Ville Rolla really, putting 0.2 to about a second on Riley every lap.
Absolutely running away from him. So Ville Rolla seems to be very comfortable down in the Brazilian heat, despite being from chilly Finland. I guess all that heat over in Europe has made him a little bit accustomed. Of course, as we said, it is a little bit cooler than usual here out on the track at 86 degrees. It has really not been swaying wildly.
Take a look at Ville Rolla going through this middle sector. He looks seriously under control. He's not even using all of the track. He's just trying to take the shortest way around, and his car control is quite impressive, actually. He's keeping that car really right underneath him, and that's extremely difficult to do around this track when most of the corners want to push you wide in this Audi.
Especially this one, as we saw earlier. Bit of a trouble zone flying through the Subidos dos boxes. Up the front stretch to complete another lap. Still not even halfway through this endurance race, and we've only had one driver, we believe, with a scheduled pit stop. Fans of Ralphie Levy, unfortunately, he's still taking repairs down in the pit lane. Before we get to those pit stops, let's run down real quick the top. Actually, we could probably pretty much go through the entire field of each class here. So let's give you the update on the stories with our leader in the prototypes. First up, Fabian Gerber put it on the pole. And though he had a challenge from Justin Albrecht in the first few laps, ever since he's been able to run through the traffic, it seems like that has separated them slightly. Albrecht behind him, only 2.2 seconds, so any mistake or any really bad traffic for Fabian could close them in together. Justin's just going to stay with this and continue to try to push if he wants to take win number 2 this season. If we go back to third, Tobias Gerber definitely showed early that he was lacking pace compared to the top 2. He's already 5 seconds behind Justin Albrecht, but he is looking at a podium kind of stuck in no man's land with nobody near him. Because Steve Bycroft back in 4th place, 7 seconds back. Even though Steve's got the number 1 on his car, has the highest I rating of the field, well, doesn't have the best pace today. So, and just as I say that, there's been a problem with Justin Albrecht. Albrecht was off track, and that was traffic. It was his own teammate, Rob Olenek, at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, it looks like he locked up locked up the front tires and had the rear still spinning as they went through this corner here. Wow. Frankly, I'm just amazed they didn't hit his teammate there.
And behind him, that was Martin Krajcik. You saw just a flash of spinning as well. That was a separate incident that he had to collect the car from his spin. Yeah, just came up on too quick, hit the binders. And there's Martin as well.
All right, so both of these guys showing us that turn, these Nissan's tires are starting to go away. That turn is really starting to prove very difficult for the Nissans as they go through there if they have any sort of traffic. But that allows Tobias Gerber to close up to second place.
In fact, Tobias has second place now. He passed Justin for that mistake. Let's finish our rundown through the field real quick, though, in the prototypes. Bycroft is the one I was on before, who has now caught up somewhat to Justin Albrecht. He was well back, but he's got something to try and, a carrot, if you will, to try and chase for now. John Keefe, who qualified last in the prototypes, has cracked into the top 5, but is well behind. He's 42 seconds back, and that is before his pit stop, mind you. So this is not an artificial gap. Behind him, Johnny Bell was fighting with Martin Krajcik, but ever since Martin's spin, Johnny's now solidly into P6 in the prototypes. Last on the field in the GTP class is Martin Krajcik. Now that he's had his spin, he is a lap down, unfortunately for him. Oh, and we've got someone joining Don down in pit lane. Don, what's going on?
It looks like Johnny Bell is taking his...
Pennsylvania driver slots into his stall. Not seeing... Oh, no, he is taking tires. He went up on the jacks. So he seems to think that he could find some speed, getting some fresh rubber underneath him. We'll see if that helps his pace. Remember, Krajcik's already taken his stop, so he inherits that position. Gets back where he needs to be. Now that that's taken place, we've got time to head down to the Audis before they take their pit stops. Adam, give us the rundown over there.
Definitely. Villerola, ever since the start, the drop the green flag, has just taken off with it, much like Riley Thompson did last week. He has about an 11, almost 12-second gap now to Riley Thompson in second place. Riley Thompson, who's been struggling significantly on this track, he may be faster than the guys behind him, but he just does not have the pace for Villerola, who's been taking nearly a second out of him every lap for the past 5 or 6. And we have Ove Trangerade in third position after his early accident going through the Senna S's. He's managed to climb up significantly back up into the field and is still chasing Riley Thompson, keeping pace with him pretty well. Nicholas Pekanos, on the other hand, Nicholas has been struggling a little bit more than Ove Trangerade. The gap to between Ove and Nicholas has opened up to about 13 seconds. So that's probably going to be where he ends up today, considering that Rob Olenek is about 6 seconds behind him after his struggles early on in the race as well. He's been able to climb back up, and he's actually keeping pace with Nicholas Pekanos. But barring any pit stop incidents, this is probably how they're going to end up for the day. Then we have Henry Pitkanen down in 6th position. He's been struggling to keep that car in the straight line. He's struggling with a little bit of oversteer off the corners, and so that's becoming a problem for him as he gets later on the run. He's definitely going to need tires when he stops. We have Riley Downley down in 14th position. We saw him missing some shifts early on, going into a couple of the corners, especially into Junção, and he's just trying to hang on to that car right now. And then we have Ralphie Levy, who was in the pits for about 11 minutes getting repairs done to his engine and to his front right. So he's down just trying to salvage some things right now.
Yeah, Ralphie just exited the pit lane as you went to him. So 7 laps down, he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to gain any positions. We go back to our leader in the prototypes, Fabian Gerber, the DH driver, leading by 9 seconds over his brother, Tobias Gerber. But this will be pretty cool to see a brotherly duo on the podium if they finish as they are.
And Fabian is going to be passing Villerola actually in another turn or two. Ville just ahead of him on track. And so this is the leader of the Nissans passing the leader of the Audis.
Watching from back on Villerola, this should really give us a good idea, Adam, of how quickly these Nissans catch these cars. This has to be one of the widest gaps in official racing between two classes.
Yeah, these cars are significantly different in how they drive, in their characteristics. The Nissans really struggle out of the corners with significant amounts of turbo lag, but they have a lot of downforce through the fast corners, especially with how flat and wide their car is. So they get a ton of air passing over the top of that wing, which basically makes up the whole car. Whereas the Audis are basically just a big block. But what they have for them is a four-wheel drive turbocharged engine, and they're able to get a lot of traction out of the corners with that four-wheel drive. Their tires are a little bit more pliable, and so that allows them to get good moves throughout.
I think we had another car down in pit lane. It looks like another Dirty Torque driver has come in and been released. I'm seeing 15 seconds on Rob Olenik's pit stop, so I suspect he probably did not take tires. He returns in P6.
Yeah, and I can confirm that Rob did not go up on his jacks, so.
Another Dirty Torque driver in, Justin Albrecht. And we're seeing this almost exactly at the halfway point. Don, it sounded like you were kind of expecting this.
Yes, that's what I kind of expected. Some people would go halfway and just split it even.
So he does go up on the jacks. So Justin Albrecht, or at least I thought he saw go up on the jacks.
He did, yes.
The shorts. Okay. Back out on the track he goes. Returns in P4 and is well ahead of the next two who have taken stops, Krejcik and Bell.
So it looks like the overcut's definitely going to work here. That's going to reduce the amount of time you have to spend on pit road taking tires and fuel. For example, Krejcik took 23 seconds worth of tires and fuel, whereas Albrecht only took 16 seconds. So these next guys who are coming in, if they want to take tires, they got to come in soon. Otherwise, the tires are going to take longer than the fuel will, and then you're just losing time.
Through into the Ducks Bill. As I believe we've got a comparison between two of our drivers in the pits. Take a glance at how they stack up. There you see the big difference between being stationary in the stall. I believe the slight difference between Albrecht and Krejcik on the lane itself. Now, if I'm not mistaken, these Nissans don't have pit limiters, do they?
I don't believe so, but there might be the mandated pit limiter that's put on by iRacing, so it's possible that they don't have to worry about that much. But it looks like there's about a 5 second, well, about a 6 or 7 second gap when it comes to how long they were stopped, but then also about 3 or 4 seconds in the lane. So it's interesting to see the difference there. I'm not sure what would have caused that.
Oh, we've got one of our drivers in the Nissan here to chip in. Don, you've got some experience on whether there's a pit limit or not. Can you confirm?
Yes, I can confirm that iRacing automatically puts a pit limiter on for this series.
So that makes it even more confusing as to why there is a difference down the lane between the two cars.
You can still go slower than that, though.
That's true. Depends on how timid he is on there. Henry Pitkinen comes in and hands a position back to Rob Olenik.
Very quick stop, though.
Ooh, yeah, excellent stop. About 2 seconds faster than Olenik. Not going to get him the position. Will get him taken for a lap by Villirola, who just comes by. You saw the yellow car flash through.
Oh my goodness. And Martin Krejcik was just trying to go around Villirola on the exit of the corner there, and he just went way off.
Take a look at the replay on that action. Love an onboard for Krejcik.
Pretty stressful moment there for Krejcik when we're taking a look at it. He's coming down and he's got roll in his sights, and just this corner, the way it works with the Audis is you end up pushing extremely wide to get the most out of the corner, and Krejcik just had to go super wide to get around it. It's amazing he didn't spin.
I was just thinking, Roll is probably the one breathing a sigh of relief, thinking, please don't spin in front of me. Got a handy lead. I can bring this one home. I don't need anything to make life harder. The green and white machine of Martin races on in 6th place.
With Pikkonen's fast pit stop, that tells me that these Audis who are still going now, the top 4, they're not going to take tires when they come in. So these tires are the ones you're going to have going to the end of the race if you're going to try and be competitive. And so these guys are really going to have to take care of them as we go further on in the session. With the track temp is now up to 88 degrees, so it is increasing. And with the sun out, it's only going to get worse. So these tires are not going to be kind to you by the end of this race.
Yeah, I guess if you take tires with a very late pit stop, there's just not enough racing to really help use that fresh rubber, is there, Adam?
Especially not to make up the time that you're going to lose by taking tires with the Audis. The Audi's tires take quite a long while compared to the Nissans, which only take about 15 seconds. So you lose a ton of time in the pits, and you're not going to have enough time to make it back, especially for these front runners like Thompson or like Trengerade, who are trying to close gaps.
Well, if Riley's trying to close the gap, he's not very successful at the moment. It is extended now to 15 seconds between himself and Rolla. This will just be a damage limitation day for Riley Thompson to take home this 2nd place, because the victory does not look likely for the number 7.
And Don, we had another Audi in the pits?
Yes, we did have number 14.
Looks like Riley Downey in and out, and I don't believe any tires.
14 seconds.
Yeah, it looks like Riley Downey in and out, keeping the same rubber that he's had with just over 20 minutes left to go. The Canadian having started this race in 15th overall, which I believe 2 from the bottom. He's actually lost position a little bit then.
And our leader, Billy Rolla, for the Audis is in the pit lane now.
Starting to see the dominoes fall for the GTOs.
Oh, he missed his pit box, and he's going up on jacks.
Well, this is interesting. Wonder if he just forgot to uncheck it, or if this is intentional.
Doesn't appear so. He's revving the engine now. 15.9 seconds, not the longest stop in the world, but that's about 3 seconds slower, so...
Well, Thompson and Trangrade did not come in. They stayed out. Mukanos did as well. So that leaves only 3 drivers that have yet to take stops in the GTOs. Olenek, Pitkanen, Downey, and Rolla have all come in and have got themselves good to go to the end.
It's also entirely possible that Billy Rolla only took 1 tire in order to try and rectify that mistake. I don't believe you can change all of them that quickly, so it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he struggles with his handling now.
That's true. Going to feel a little awkward if he's got 1 fresh one and 3 bad tires. Meanwhile, we're following our current leader, Riley Thompson, who we believe should go back in to 2nd place after these stops, unless he's lightning quick out there.
Yeah, he's got a 17-second gap back to Rolla, but the pit lane time for Rolla was 35 seconds, so unless Riley can stretch that by about double, he's not going to come back out in front of Rolla.
Yeah, I imagine that would be the case. He does not come in this time by, neither does Trangerade. Seeing if Nick Mukanos elects to pit. Oh, and we got a... Oh, Ralphie Levy, unfortunately, had a problem in a similar area, and now he's in a precarious spot, very fast on the track. He's going to want to get this out of the way. Now he's able to clear it.
And while we're watching that, Fabian Gerber is on the pit lane as well. We'll report on that once we're done with this replay.
I think it was the same thing. Yeah, just a little wide. Oh, and a very hard hit. Engine damage very clearly by the smoke coming off the car. So
And it looks like
Fabian Gerber is out already. And he's well ahead of Justin Albrecht. So he managed to keep from getting jumped in the pit stop cycle.
And gained quite a few seconds. He's almost 8 seconds ahead of Albrecht after that pit stop. So the overcut definitely working today.
Still waiting on Tobias Gerber, Bycroft, and Keefe to pit.
In the Audis, Riley Thompson, Ove Trangerade, and Nicholas Mikanos have also not pit.
Just keeping an eye on them, and they're going to stay out this time by at least Thompson and Trangerade will. But what about Mikanos? Mikanos is just coming up to be right on board with Tobias Gerber. Mikanos is going to stay out. So is Gerber.
Steve Bycroft as well.
Everybody trying to run it as long as they can, it looks like.
Well, with the overcut, with the overcut working this week, you want to run it as long as possible because I mean, like a 7-second gap made up from a 2-second gap that Albrecht had back to Tobias. I mean, even after that accident, Albrecht was able to close it. So it's impressive the overcut and how much it's working today.
I'd say so. As we watch Riley continue to lead laps. Now, he doesn't get any bonus points for leading a lap, if I'm not mistaken. I'll need to double check the rule book on this.
I don't believe so. I believe it's only by position, finishing position that they get points.
Let's see, he is dealing with Johnny Bell just behind him, trying to find a way through. Bell's going to try and go around the outside, and thankfully Thompson saw him coming. Doesn't drift all the way out.
And he's in the pits.
In fact, yep, he's just going to take this opportunity to come on in.
And who's that behind him? I think that's Ove Trangerade.
It is indeed. Should hand the lead back to Villirola unless something extraordinary happens.
Riley is not taking tires. Ove is not taking tires.
Down the hill through the Senna S. Riley in and out. Mukanos did not pit that time, though. In fact, this is sort of bad news for Thompson because Mukanos is not too far ahead of him. If he's slow on pace, that could hold up Riley slightly.
I don't believe that Riley's going to be much faster than Nick. He just added more fuel but didn't take tires, so it's possible that Nick's actually going to be faster than Riley at this point in the race.
Don, you've had a chance to race against some of these drivers, so you've kind of seen the strategy that they try for. Do you have any news on Mukanos and how he plans to play things out?
Well, based on what I saw in last night's race, he'll go as far as he can to the end of the right pits.
Did you have an idea of just how far he managed to get on the clock before he ran it dry?
He went to like lap 33 or something in that range.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. He's on lap 28 right now. So.
And Tobias Gerber has come into the pits now for his stop.
All right, that relinquishes the lead for the number 10.
Bycroft goes by.
Yeah, he's going to take it away since he has not pitted. Lucano stays out for another lap. Tobias is taking tires. And that's going to give third to Justin Albrecht as he's going to be easily by. In fact, it's a little bit of a long stop for Tobias. Ooh, much longer than Justin Albrecht. About 3 seconds difference we're seeing.
That's definitely going to give that spot back to Justin by a significant margin. Almost 12 seconds now coming out of the pits. So that is quite a long stop for Tobias Gerber. So that puts Justin Albrecht back up into the third position and Fabian Gerber back up at the second. And at this point, we're only waiting for John Keefe and Nicholas Mikanos to come to the pit lane, as well as Bycroft, who's leading the GTPs at the moment.
No, I wonder if Bycroft has a really good stop, if this is going to close him in on Gerber and give him a chance to sneak into the podium position.
He might not be able to catch Albrecht, but he definitely, if he only takes fuel, if he goes as long as he can and only takes enough fuel to get him to the end of the race, he might be able to catch Albrecht by the end of the race, but that's going to be very close, and it's going to have to be on pace.
Certainly will. Steve does not pit this time by with 15 minutes left to go now. And we're still waiting on Nick Mukanos to come in. Nick is running in second place, but he's got Riley Thompson. Yeah. Do you think maybe this is a ploy for Nick to try and hold Riley up a little bit, or is that stretching too far?
It's not going to benefit Nick that much to hold up Riley, but at the same time, Nick's not going to move over for him, and with the track, really, with the tires as old as they are, it's really difficult to get by, and so Riley's going to have to get a really good exit off of Junção in order to make this pass, because it's probably not going to happen here through the middle sector.
Just riding behind for now. Thompson a little more, almost 11 seconds, I should say, up to our leader, Villy Rolla. So probably not looking at taking that position, but he does have to fend off drivers behind potentially. If he gets held up too long, maybe someone could jump him in the pit stops. Or catch him necessarily. Ove train grade only 7.5 behind.
Yeah, Ove's been trying to close that gap, and it's not been working super great, but yeah, this is the closest battle we have on track at the moment between Riley and Nick.
It is lap 30, and that's as far as, yeah, Nick's coming your way. Down pit lane, the Californian, the last of the Audis to take a stop. He's going to be overtaken by Ove Trangrade. What about Rob Olenek, though? Ooh.
Rob went a little, or Nick went a little deep. He had to back up.
Well, that'll extend his stop just a little bit. Is that enough that he needs to worry about Rob Olenek? That's the question. He's going now. Olenek streaming down the pit lane, or down the front stretch rather, as Nick Mukanos has passed the cones and trying to accelerate away. I think he's going to manage to be ahead of his teammate.
That's good for his championships points as well.
That slots him into P4.
And Bycroft is in the pits now.
Finally we're seeing pretty much everybody in, although I see John Keefe continues on for another lap. Here comes Bycroft. He gets demoted to second.
Taking tires.
Now third. Ooh, interesting. Tobias Gerber going to get by him. John Keefe is a long ways back. So this is where Steve Bycroft is going to come out, we expect, into P4.
And Ralphie Levy, after his second accident, is finally exiting the pits as well, behind Steve Bycroft. But Riley Thompson's going to be alongside him as he exits the pits here. But Riley should be able to let him go through this corner.
Absolutely. Ralphie really wants that Dory Award today. He is not quitting. That or he needs some SR.
Yeah, Riley Dory doing a good job to hang on to everything here, but he's really kind of, sorry, Ralphie Levy rather, and he's really struggling to hang on to that car with how tight it is. Seems like he's not quite used to the handling characteristics of the Audi quite yet.
Was that a Freudian slip there, Adam?
Something like that.
We continue to watch that slightly mangled Audi work his way around. Let's take a look at John Keefe, though. because they're still waiting on the number 11 to take a pit stop. He's only halfway through the lap, so he's gone longer than anybody else out there on track.
Yeah, Don, with only about 10 minutes to go in this race, how much longer can John Keefe run here? Is he almost out of fuel?
Looks like Don has caught Don running down the pit lane, so we'll get back to him in a second. Once he can give us the information there, you can see running in 5th, and we talked about it early. He qualified last on that prototype field, so this has not been the best run, but at least he's made up a few spots out there, has the Hoosier.
He's doing pretty good, but it looks like his tires are getting a little tired, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in this lap. Let's see whether he does. No, he does not. Interesting.
Very light right foot, I guess. I wouldn't think he could make it the whole way, even though they've got that infield section. And the 2 long stretches of the run up to the front stretch and the Retta Apolsto, to me, would say this is a pretty thirsty track.
Yeah, I would say it'd be stretching it to make it all the way. I haven't really been watching to see if he was trying to save fuel.
At the same time, I have been hearing him short shift on the straights, so it's possible he's trying to save fuel, but that would be a very long way to go for a Nissan.
And he is 44 seconds behind the next car up, Steve Bycroft. So that kind of points to maybe running a slower pace, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's worked out terribly well, because he's a long ways back from 4th place. But I guess at this point he's committed to it, because he can't exactly sprint off and try and race him down.
Yeah, at this point in the race, everyone's just kind of hitting their numbers. Our closest gap on track is about 6.5 seconds, so these guys are all trying to manage their stuff, trying to manage their tires and their fuel to the end of this race, make sure they can get there.
8 minutes left to go now. If you're just joining us, Fabian Gerber has been leading for much of the race, only handed that lead away during the pit stops. And though he was challenged by Albrecht early on, Albrecht has fallen down to about 10 seconds behind the number 2 car. And then on the GTO side, Villirola. Again, similar situation. Only did not lead during the pit stops, but otherwise has just had complete control of this thing.
Yeah, Riley Thompson's 15.5 seconds behind, and even with a 2.5 second faster pit stop, that was not able to close the gap. Rola's pace is just something else today.
Should be pretty proud of this win. Once he manages to bring it home under the checkered flag. Just a few more laps to do so. He is scot-free. So John Keefe, if he is trying to go without a fuel stop, is just about to be lapped by Fabian Gerber.
Yeah, this no-stop strategy, cool idea, and it's going to be a real feat if he can pull it off, but it's definitely not the fastest way around the track, with Fabian Gerber getting ready to make a pass on him right here.
And he's going to make it look easy, sliding through on the inside through Subidos dos boxes. Fabian Gerber puts a lap down to the 5th place car.
You know, Joe, wow, just as they try and get by Ralphie Levy there through the Senna S's, Joe, I'm actually quite surprised that we haven't seen any turbo lag incidents from the Nissans. This is an extremely difficult track to manage the turbo lag out of the corners, and these Nissans have been handling it gracefully.
That's a good point. Credit to all the drivers out there for how they've been running this thing. In fact, we've only had 2 DNFs out of 17 starters, both of them Nissans, the 17 of Simone Pancri and the number 5 of Phil Lake, which we never did find out what exactly happened to him.
Phil having, frankly, a dismal season, not the season that he was looking forward to. I've talked with him a couple times after the race, and he's just kind of having a bad time, really down on himself right now. I would love to see him get a result that he really has earned, because the guy's fast and he's also very consistent. So it's just a series of bad luck races, and so very unfortunate for him.
Riley having a little bit of an adventure through turn 1, but manages to avoid too much drama. You know, I'm kind of surprised. We've seen Phil switch back and forth between classes before. If he's having a bad time in the Nissans, I'm a little shocked that he hasn't just hopped back down into the Audi, because he tends to fare well in that too.
Yeah, 2 seasons ago, he had a bad time with the Audis dealing with traffic and some inexperienced drivers, so he switched over to the Nissan more permanently, and we haven't seen him back yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him make the switch, if not this season, then next season.
Through the horseshoe for Riley Thompson. Second place will be a nice haul of points for the number 7 car, but you always hope for that victory as a racing driver, to do that little bit more.
And just in the last 3 laps, Villarola has opened up that gap back up to like about 1.2 seconds a lap, so really impressive move.
Yeah.
Taking a look back from Villarola back to Riley Downing, his pace has been absolutely incredible.
18 seconds between first place and second place now, with a lapped car between them. On
Mycroft has gone around.
Ooh. Does this give some hope to John Keefe? And you know what? This is a mirror image, complete
and
duplicate.
Keefe is in the pits.
He finally came in. So we watch this replay. This looks exactly like what happened to Justin Albrecht.
Yep, those Nissans not used to finding the Audis through the middle of those corners, and Mycroft having to get on the binders hard, and those rear tires spinning around, getting a little bit of wheel hop there, and that's just sending him around.
Checking up when you don't expect it in a very high-speed corner, and this car do not mix. We come back live. Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead, Don.
John Keefe is in and out. Took 10-second stop.
Ooh, very, very quick. Wow.
Well, this goes to show, you know, if you go long, you can get really short stops to fuel, but at the same time, look at what it's cost him to do that. He's 18 seconds behind Krejcik at this point, and that bumps Krejcik up to P5, but he's a full lap down, so he's got a long way to go in order to make any points here. But, you know, the strategy's just not working out for him today.
Let's take a look at the leader in this class, Fabian Gerber. Starting to look like he is simply managing the pace, because it's stayed at about 10 seconds between himself and Albrecht. He doesn't need to push the issue. He doesn't need to take risky moves in traffic. With 2 minutes left, we should see the white flag next time by, I believe.
Yeah, Joe, this is a surprisingly technical track. People may not think that because of how wide and expansive it looks, especially with the turns as wide as they are, but it's extremely technical to try and get any car through these turns, but especially the Nissans and the Audis. The Nissans really, they have a lot of high downforce, but these slow corners in this middle section is really difficult. As we take a look at Villarola, the Audis have the opposite problem. Those high-speed corners, they tend to push extremely wide, and it's very difficult to get those cars woed up. But then, when you get into this middle section, the car comes alive, and that four-wheel drive off the corner really helps you get speed. So it's really impressive to see these guys drive around here with as few incidents as we've had.
Coming out of the final corner for Fabian Gerber as we watch Villarola. Actually, I'm not sure if no, I don't think he's going to get lapped again by Fabian. It's a little bit close. You can see he's coming up the front stretch himself now. Gets the white flag with less than a minute to go. The number 2 is essentially on a victory lap from here. The gap comes down to 8.5 seconds, actually less than 8.5 seconds. But as we said, we don't believe there's anything wrong with Gerber's car. He is just cruising.
So Villarola is going to have to go another lap around here, possibly. We'll see whether Fabian can get to him, but I'm sure Villarroel, with a 23-second gap back to Riley, would just, wouldn't mind Fabian getting by. So he might actually put on the brakes as they get into Junção and just let Fabian go by if he hasn't made it to him at this point. But Billy's having to struggle with getting past Ralphie Levy, who goes off again.
Well, found something softer this time. We don't need to go to a replay of that. And actually, we need to stay on this because Gerber looks like he will be able to lap him. He caught him quicker than I thought. And I think, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Villy just wants to let him through so he doesn't have to do a whole extra lap. And easily gets on by Fabian Gerber. Looks like he is going for another championship run because here is a victory for the number 2 car today in Interlagos, followed by a win for Villarroel in the GTOs.
It's not often that we get to see 1 and 2 pass the line right next to each other in this, 1 and 1, I suppose, pass each other here. So Justin Albrecht finishing in 2nd place, and then we have Riley Thompson coming down the straight now, and he's going to finish as well in 2nd for his class.
Just behind Tobias Gerber, a podium on the prototypes. Speaking of which, Ove Trangerade 3rd down in the GTOs as well. Something of a quiet run for Ove, but he finished, if I'm seeing correctly, only 2 seconds behind Riley Thompson. 3 seconds.
That's correct, especially after his early incidents. That's an impressive finish for him.
Last of the cars across the line as Mukanos is going to lead Rob Olenek. So Mukanos will solidify his points lead in the GTO Championship. With that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews, but stick around because on screen you can see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Interlagos. We just watched round 4 here in the Kamel GT series, and Fabian Gerber, despite having to hold back Justin Albrecht in the early laps, once he was able to break the chain, he was loose and there was no putting the dog back in the kennel. Fabian Gerber wins by 8 seconds over Justin Albrecht, with Tobias Gerber taking a podium. Two brothers up at the top. That's got to feel good for them. Steve Bycroft finishes in 4th, the last of the cars on the lead lap. Steve finishing well ahead of Martin Krejcik, who finishes P5. John Keefe going very, very long, but couldn't make it to the end of the race. He'll take 6th place. Johnny Bell, the last of the GTPs to manage to see the checkered flag, in 7th. Adam?
Villarola coming home with not a surprise victory after this amazing finish, but he does kind of come out of nowhere to take that victory away from Riley Thompson, who was a full, about 13 seconds back. Then we have Ove Trengrade coming home in the 3rd position, a good podium finish for him. Nicholas Vakanos getting himself a commanding points lead now, finishing ahead of his championship challenger Rob Olenek. Then we have Henry Pitkanen coming home in that 5th position there, with Riley Downey in 6th position, and Ralphie Levy finishing out the GTOs, with Philip Lake and Simone Pancree our DNFs today.
And unfortunately, we don't have anybody here to talk to us in the post-race interview, sadly. We'll see if anybody comes in the next couple moments. But Adam, this was actually a fascinating one to watch, because we don't often get to see these enduro formats. They only put maybe 1 or 2 in per season. And I was really shocked at how far John Keefe managed to take this one.
Yeah, he went really far, but the pit strategy didn't work out for him. It put him over a lap down once all was said and done. So while we had varying pit strategies and the overcut was strong today, you did want to make sure to keep your pace up, because running along, John Keefe looked like he was trying to go all the way on fuel, and that didn't work out for him, and the pace didn't keep up either.
Sometimes when you gamble like that, I guess it just doesn't pay off. So we're going to close up today and give a few thank yous. Of course, a big one to the Kamel community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, as well to iRacing for putting us on IESN. Make sure when you get the opportunity to subscribe. All you got to do is go to their YouTube page, click the big red button that says subscribe, and you won't miss a moment here on IESN. Additional thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast, listed on your screen, as well as a thank you to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Adam, Sean, Dougie, and Don. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Cram. The next race that they have, I'm not making this up, we're going to Monza's combined circuit in these cars with no chicanes. That'll be Saturday, July 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern. You heard that right. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.